had the Nazi flags. They had the brown shirts. They had soldiers goose-stepping.
The legendary Jesse Owens remembers the 1936 Olympics. At that Games, he became the first African-American to win an individual Olympic gold. And he destroyed Adolf Hitler's myth of Aryan racial superiority while doing it.
My goal was to perform at the absolute best of my ability for that moment in time.
I'm an Aborigine and I'm proud of it. It's part of my motivation.
Stereotypes are meant to be broken.
James Cleveland Owens, known as JC, was born in 1913 into a family of sharecroppers in Alabama. His grandparents had been slaves, and the lives of sharecroppers were a little better. Like many black Americans at the time, Owens' family left the Deep South and joined the Great Migration North, eventually settling in Ohio. With a southern accent so thick that his school teacher thought he said Jesse when he told him his name, Owens excelled at athletics, a sport which he says taught him things beyond the track.
There must be the willingness to make the sacrifice, to work day by day, and then you must be able to listen to those that are going to coach. And then within yourself, you must build your dreams in order to achieve the success in life that you would want to. These, to me, are some of the things that I learned when I was 13 years old, when I began my athletic career.
Owens matched the world record for the 100-yard sprint while still in high school. And then in 1935, he set 3 world records and equaled another within an hour of an athletic meet in Michigan. So when the Olympic Games came around a year later, Jesse was a hot favourite for gold. But the 1936 Berlin Games wasn't an ordinary Olympics. Hitler sought to use the event to glorify his Nazi regime and his bogus belief in a white master race. It added a fuel to the fire inside Owens, one of only a handful of black athletes to compete at that Games.
We were out to destroy that myth of Aryan supremacy, not thinking at that time that, where we're thinking politically, because politics had no part to play on this field of competition. But when you begin to think in terms of what he had said, and that we that were from America, the black auxiliary of the American team, which America had to reach to the bottom of the barrel to bring enough people here to compete in these games against his super people. So we came.
Although he'd been urged to boycott the Games, Jesse set sail for Europe with the rest of the US squad and proved beyond doubt that he was the master of the track.
But a black American athlete smashes the theory of a Teutonic super race. His name is Jesse Owens, and he becomes an Olympic immortal. First, he wins the 100-meter dash. Owens wins a second gold medal in the 200 meters, and a third as anchorman on the 400-meter relay team. Victory in the broad jump climaxes a star-spangled performance by Jesse Owens. For Adolf Hitler, a foretaste of other defeats on other fields.
At a time when huge swathes of black people lived under either European colonial rule in Africa and the Caribbean, or in racially segregated societies like America, the symbolism of Owens' victory was huge. This was a world in which racism and racist ideology was normalized. 3 years later, it would witness the horrors of World War II and the Holocaust. Europe would be driven to the edge of destruction by the conflict, while 6 million Jews and other minority groups were rounded up by the Nazis and murdered in the gas chambers. Welcomed back to the US by ticker tape parades, Jesse was on top of the world. But life in 1930s America was tough for a black man, even one with 4 gold medals. At a reception to honor him in New York, he was forced to use the freight elevator rather than enter through the front door. President Franklin D. Roosevelt didn't invite him to the White House as he did with other medalists. And the US athletics team, strictly amateur at the time, suspended Owens after he took up commercial offers to run.
How about your suspension after the Olympics, Mr. Owens?
Well, my suspension, I really can't say much about it because I was tired. I wanted to come home, and I really did. After all, I haven't seen my wife for 3 months, and I'm very glad to be back home to see her.
Despite being the fastest man in the world, Jesse never competed for the US again. To support his family, he worked as a gas station attendant, at a dry cleaners, and as a janitor, while he raced against amateurs, vehicles, and even horses for cash. Jesse said at the time, "People say that it was degrading for an Olympic champion to run against a horse, but what was I supposed to do? I had 4 gold medals, but you can't eat 4 gold medals." Down but not out, Owens bounced back later in life, becoming a success on the speaking circuit and a goodwill ambassador for the US government. His legacy was taken forward with Tommy Smith and John Carlos standing up at the 1968 Olympics to lead in new ways, even if the problems were depressingly familiar. Jesse was invited back to a very different Germany for the Games in '72, where he spoke about the ability of sport to foster humanity's growth.
As long as black and white of the world are coming to a melting pot of understanding here on the field of competition, then Africa will merge as one of the great powers in the athletic world because their youngsters are being motivated by those that have won, and they have the same dreams and the desires as any other youth of the world. They will be doing a great job in future Olympics to come, as they have done in '72.
Owens passed away from lung cancer in 1980, just a few years after this interview. Jesse's position as an inspiration and icon for future generations is exemplified by Olympic legend Carl Lewis, who became the first man to match Jesse's haul of 4 athletics golds in the 1984 Games.
I think the ups and downs that Jesse Owens had to go through in 1936 when he was trying for those same 4 events, in that respect, he was definitely an inspiration because I know what he had to go through. And then being the person that he was and being someone who inspired me as a young child to compete.
Stephen James, who played Jesse in a biopic of the Olympic champion's life, sums up the impact that Owens had.
I looked at his life and I thought, if Jesse Owens could do what he did at a time in which he did it, where he did it, then there's really no excuse for anyone to accomplish great things. This is really a story that the whole world can connect and relate to. This man who didn't have much but essentially changed the world through his love for running.
Way before Lewis, Florence Griffith Joyner, and Usain Bolt, Owens was the first global black star of the track. A trailblazer in thought, deed, and action, his glorious legacy burns bright until this day.